Mr. Bell, what do you know about climate
What
change?
do I know about climate change? I know that it's real. I know that it's a daily thing. It's also connected to global.
I don't think I know enough about climate change, honestly. I think that I probably should educate myself more, and information is out there, which I'm thankful for, but I don't know probably more than the average person.
That it is causing major issues in our world and it is affecting many animals.
What is your opinion on climate change?
My opinion that it is a priority, and that if we want to stand any length of survival as a species, we're going to need to act and act soon instead of waiting around. It definitely should be an election issue coming up, and hopefully it's a driving force for not just our country but all countries around the world.
I think that we need to take care of it really soon because it's gonna affect us all.
Yeah, we're all gonna die if we don't fix our actions.
My opinion is it's real.
Well, it's very real and not helping us in any way, shape, or form.
Who is to blame?
Who's to blame? Well, if there's any just and any, I mean, I would say everyone is to blame, right? We're all on this planet, so we're all in this together. But I would say anyone that is a heavy consumer, and by that I mean food, products, anything, so pretty much America, is going to be more of an impact on global warming and climate change.
People.
For the most part, yes, because
Everyone.
How urgent is the issue of climate change?
Oh, very urgent. I highly doubt that we'll get beyond maybe a second generation of humans if we don't do anything now. So
That's intense.
it is intense,
For sure.
for sure.
Climate change.
Very.
definitely.
Very urgent, because if not, we might as well just shorten all our lifespans.
Why do some people not care about climate change? Why do some people recognize that there is not a problem and that there's no urgency to this issue?
I think this is a convoluted part of things. It could be from misinformation to news, to people not understanding what climate change or global warming are on a daily schedule. Like, so, for instance, people see that it's raining and they're like, oh, well, it's just raining. But in a grander, bigger perspective, you're realizing, well, this rain is part of a bigger network of cells that is happening more and more. Like we have the tornadoes this year. Those clusters are getting more dense. Like we're having more and more tornadoes happening, and this is not normal. This is not precedent. We've had tornadoes, cool. Not this much. We've had hurricanes, cool. Not this much, not this intense. That's the problem, and it's ramping up. And I don't think people are realizing that this ramping up is happening, and that this detriment is also becoming more permanent as the ice caps melt, as the water becomes more less salinated. Animals are dying. So, and I don't think people are seeing the connection where if one species dies and we are related and we are all part of this planet together, then that has a rippling effect. It's not just, oh yeah, that lion's dead, and we don't have to worry about it. No, it's part of an ecosystem. It's part of a bigger system. If that lion dies, then there will be ripples.
I think also a lot of people in power are older and don't think it's going to affect them. So because it's not as pressing of a matter, or it might not affect them as severely in their lifetime, they don't care as much. But I do think that the younger generation is starting to stand up and care about it, and hopefully we can get more people in power who also care about it, so we can make big changes. I think the people in power who actually have the power to make changes in the law and with companies and stuff need to take more action. But I think it's all related, because where people are seeing and getting their information and what people are hearing about in terms of if it's scientific or not, or if it's pushed enough, I think it really needs to be stressed in all areas of everyday life.
I feel like it's, once again, like people just going with what the crowd thinks. So if one person says something that is more major, I guess you could say, in that form, so other people will go with it, and then it becomes like one idea basically.
What propaganda caused misconceptions about climate change? Why do some people ignore scientific information about climate change as well?
I really think this comes down to people just don't want to change. People just are. It's too expensive. It's too complicated. I'm not a scientist, so I can't do anything. And I think that's just part of the misinformation. I think also people are putting their priorities in the wrong pot. Agriculture is one of the biggest detriments to our getting out of climate change, and that seems to be not the issue that people bring up. A lot of it's like cars or transportation. Sure, that's a problem, definitely, but it's not the problem. The big one is what we're doing with deforestation and agriculture and that aspect, and nobody's even looking that way, and that's the sad thing.
I think some people ignore it because they might recognize it, but they're scared to look into more information, or they think that if they look into it, it's also a really big responsibility, which I think is why some people don't do anything about it, because
Well, they're in denial, or they think, oh, it's not that bad, or it's not gonna impact us that much, or like the world's just gonna make up for it, and it's not gonna catch up.
Why are influencers or important people in our community banned or shied away from speaking about climate change?
I think this comes down to politics. So people want to be elected, which is great, but they're afraid if they mention these hot button issues that they won't get elected. And so either they will shy away from them, or in terms of trying to get elected, or they won't bring them up and maybe do it in the background, but it's not enough in the grand scheme of things because it's not being publicized, it's not being brought to attention. So I think it's fear.
I think, again, like I was saying, it's a big responsibility. So when you say something about it, that is making a big statement. And some people see that as a political statement or as something that they could receive backlash for. And so as like famous people, kind of popular opinion is important to them in their careers. So it's dangerous to say something that might be controversial. But also, it's a big responsibility. So coming out and saying something can be a big deal.
Well, I think they just ignore it because they're just in denial and they don't care that much, and so many people are just like, one person goes and they just want to go with the crowd, so they're all in denial.
How is our current system of public education, schools, social media, radio, TV, and people's opinions on climate change related?
It's all related. So communication and education are the top advocacy parts of things, but then that's only the first part. The second part is action, is actually making. So here we have a plan, we have all these ideas. Cool, that's great. What's someone going to do about it? So the second part is action, and I don't think anyone's starting to, at least not on a grand scheme of things, implementing. And it's not action that part of it's going to be forward action and engineering, but I really do not firmly believe that we cannot engineer ourselves out of this problem. We engineered ourselves into this problem, and to a degree we can engineer ourselves a little bit out of the problem, but a lot of it's going to be, I think, reversal. We got to back off. We got to stop consuming at such a higher rate. And now part of the problem is population, which is surge, which is cool.
Really, like, the school doesn't teach us anything. We get most of our information anyways from the internet, and so it's good that the internet is serving as a platform for more information for us.
I honestly think we're making some progress in terms of information and like outreach to groups, but I think people need to take it more seriously and act faster. And I honestly think that also a lot of like people in law and people in power who can make climate change.
Because they don't want to be attacked from other people that do not think it's real.
Yeah.
What should we do to fix the public education system in order to create a world that addresses the urgency of this problem?
I mean, part of that is already kind of going into play where we're trying to push for STEM. I don't know if that's going so far as to helping the problem. I think that's advocating again. It's realizing that there is a problem. I don't know if the education system is prepared, and I'm not entirely sure how to go about changing it to address this on a more global scale. I really think this is maybe the think global, act local kind of thing, but I think people also need to start seeing and realizing the repercussions and ripples of their purchasing and their consuming. And I don't know if that's being taught well enough. So maybe realizing when you buy a computer, how does that happen, right? I think there's been a disconnect. When you go to a supermarket and you buy a pound of roast beef, where is that coming from? How did that come to be? And why is that being subsidized and so cheap? I think that we need to advocate and realize like how these things came to be a little bit more, and why that they're still around, and why maybe they shouldn't be around. It needs to be educated in there too. As to how that change comes to be, as a teacher, it's frustrating and also exciting at the same time. It's like you're frustrated at the system as it is now because it's not acting fast enough, and you're excited because you want it to happen faster, but I don't know, my hands are tied in some ways because of bureaucracy, and then at the same time it's like, go get them, guys, but if there isn't a plan from the get-go, and I don't know if education system is the way to go, but I do know that we need to all get on board and find a common goal of getting things across.
Fix it.
We need to integrate more like world problems into our education.
Just maybe have one class that really emphasizes what's going on and actual statistics that we don't address in daily life.